One of the podcasts that I listen to is Hidden Brain. At the end of each episode, the host shouts out an unsung hero to the podcast. I'm going to steal that and send my thanks to my live stream unsung hero, Ashley Teister. She sat in the room for most of the 36 hours without being able to hear what was happening because I had headphones on, and made sure that I had food and drink as well as running background comms for the event. She also assisted with the incoming athlete videos. Thank you, Ashley, for helping with the live stream and just all that you do in general.
You're listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, Larry Ryan.
Thanks, MJ. Today's episode is a follow-up to the Australia 10th anniversary event. I speak with the champions and its race director to find out how things unfolded. You can see longer versions of these discussions on my YouTube page, with links in the show notes. Myself, along with the Dream Team, broke new ground and set the standard for reporting on 515 events by live streaming the entire event this year. I am super proud of how it all turned out for a first go around, and I learned a lot to make the next one even better. If you're racing at a 515 event, please contact the race director and ask if it will be live streamed. I'm happy to do this for all of the races. If you didn't check us out while we were live streaming, check the show notes for links to my YouTube page, and you can go back and see it all in the library under the Australia playlist. Just before I speak to our women's champion, I did want to play this one clip from the Australia Awards that I think sums up the reason why being able to live stream these events is so important. I appreciate that Ian Blatchford took a little bit of time out of his 2 minutes to say this.
Right, it was good. And the last thing I'd say is thank you for the live stream. There's an 80-year-old grandmother 15,000 kilometers away who was in tears yesterday, who was watching this. And it's the first time she's seen her son compete in 40 years of doing triathlon. So she loved every minute of it. So she thanks you from the bottom of her heart. But thank you, everyone, and we'll see you all again.
My next guest is Australia's largest owl, who happens to be married to a rooster. Together, they raced at Australia in 2018, and this year she returned gunning for a run course record. She has competed in 8 Ironman races around Australia with multiple age group podiums and twice raced in Kona. Last year, she raced at 70.3 in Taupo, finishing second in her age group. I picked her as a possible winner of the 10th anniversary race in Noosa this year during our podcast preview with Jeff Morris and Tim Franklin, and she almost proved me correct. The second place finisher and the female champion of Australia 2025, Kirsty Sheehan. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, I think you guys were somewhat optimistic with that prediction, but yeah, as you said, it did. We did almost get there.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing race by you, and we're going to obviously go through all of that a little bit day by day and give everybody your numbers. But first off, I got to know, why are you the owl and your husband the rooster? And hopefully it's not dirty.
Well, one of them not, one of them maybe a little, but so Louise O'Regan, who's actually on my crew, we met around about 15 or 16 years ago when we were working at Greenslopes Private Hospital. She was as a diabetes educator and myself as a dietitian. Someone introduced us and we decided, we both liked running. So for years and years, we met, come what may, every Thursday morning for a run around Kangaroo Point Cliffs. and she now will go on to tell you that those were some of the hardest runs she ever did. Meanwhile, I was having a great old time fluffing around. I would be sending her a message quite often, or in group messages at around about 11 p.m., 12 o'clock the night before, and we'd be meeting at 5 a.m. And she was just like, I can't believe, how little sleep you get. And yeah, you can do that when you're in your 30s. So she just started saying, you're such a night owl, and calling me a night owl. And then when we were doing our runs and with subsequent, I guess, improvements in performance, she just started calling me the powerful owl. At that point, I was nowhere near I am now on the bike, and we'd only just started riding together to do our first triathlon, and she was kicking my ass. So one day I said, as we were like flying down a hill, I said, well, if I'm an owl, you're an eagle, like absolutely soaring. So we became known as the owl and the eagle. And then a few years later, when I first met the Rooster, my husband, we were all on our way down for a trip to Port Macquarie 70.3. And he was in the middle, and we said something about the two birds. He did say something that was, I guess, somewhat questionable. And so, yeah, we both called him a cock, basically. And we said he then subsequently became known as the Rooster.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the live stream replay yet, but I would like to play it for. Oh, have you?
No, I've seen bits of it, and as I said to you, I was very impressed.
Oh, thank you. But I do want to play it for you now so that the listener can hear the call. And I mean, everybody loves to hear Steve King call them across the line, so I'm sure you don't mind watching this and listening to this.
Not at all.
They're making a right-hand turn. You can see people clapping away. This is absolutely tremendous. 7:15 on the clock. That is going to be a brilliant time. Absolutely brilliant. Wow. That's Kirsty Sheehan coming back from a second place when she raced last time out and taking the victory in the women's and the first person to arrive at the finish line. Magnificent job. Wow. 46 years of age. We'll get that official time for you shortly, but it was 7:15 and change. So she's knocked 10 minutes off the previous women's record for the run portion of the event. Once we get the official time, we'll be able to get you a 3-day total, and we'll see where that places her. But my guess is that is going to be the second fastest ever 3-day total for a female as well. And look at that, with a great crew. What a job they've done. A team captain, Lisa Gatt, Rooster, her husband, Craig Churchward, Lisa's husband, and Louise O'Regan, another great friend, and was on the crew in 2018 as well.
Well, there you go. That's the Steve King calling you across the finish line on day 3. What do you think about hearing that?
I mean, it was pretty special. I have to say, as I said in my speech, it's probably one of the first times I've crossed the line in a long time, maybe ever, and felt really satisfied with what I'd done, and satisfied that I'd put everything that I could out there for UM Australia. So it was a very, very satisfying and very emotional moment. And I also think I really wanted to do it for my crew as well, because it's obviously a big amount of a big investment for them in terms of time and emotion. And so I was glad that I could actually sort of repay them in some way for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Steve mentioned them there, obviously, crossing the finish line with you. For the people that are just listening to this audio podcast, I would like to set this up for the listener by sharing your times across the 3 days, and then we can kind of touch on your performances as we go along each day by day. For the swim, you did a 2:56:34, and for the bike, you had a 4:53:04. Which was only 3 minutes different from your 2018 time. So that's pretty good that you were able to be that consistent. Obviously, the swim time is not comparable because the 2018 swim was not the full distance. That was the one that came up a little bit short.
Yeah, that's right.
And then finish that day, you put yourself into the top 5 for the total of day 1 people who have finished the race at Australia over these first 10 years, knocking out Penelope Holland and putting yourself in there. So your day one finish comparisons with the other racers had you in second place. Tim Belstead was an hour and 8 minutes with the lead over you, with his record-setting swim, which was just fantastic. And then you had
amazing.
And you had just a 1 second lead over Boris after day one. So you must have felt really safe. You must have felt safe. Can you tell us how day one went, in your opinion?
Okay, so I really, there's a couple of things that I should say for the swim. And I was actually pretty ecstatic with my swim time in the end. And again, if I give you some context, that was because in the previous year I was supposed to compete at in 2024. And then in the February at 70.3 Hobart, which coincidentally Tim was competing at as well. I didn't know him at the time, but I had a crash on a wet course coming downhill at 50k per hour. And I broke my collarbone, broke some ribs, and suffered something called the Morel Levelet lesion on the outside of my leg, which is when the fascia and the fat tissue and the muscle tissue layer separate. So I had a big pocket of fluid in there. So that obviously it took me a while to recover from, and mostly like physically you obviously recover, but mentally it left some fair anxiety with riding in the wet. And obviously my swimming took a hit. And then I was back on the bike. This just, I hadn't had an accident for 12 years. So, and then it's sort of, you could hardly believe this, but I was back on the bike, and I think I'd only been back on the bike for around about 3 weeks outside. And I was on my brand new TT bike, and there was a car and some railway lines. I was on my own, and next thing I knew, I was back down on the ground with another fractured collarbone on the same side, and had opened up my knee and my elbow. So you can imagine that, mentally, is when you're coming back from one accident and one broken collarbone, and you're back on the road, and starting to regather your confidence, to take another hit like that was huge. So happy with the swim. Yeah.
And then you get out on the bike. You do that out and back on day one. From what I've heard through the live stream, some of the people thought that the road conditions weren't that great. What were your thoughts about the course that you had to take on day one? Yeah,
so as I rolled out of the Surf Lifesaving car park, it started pouring with rain. But I mean, I was mentally prepared for that, I think, because I'd heard it the days before. I'd seen the forecast, and I knew that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. I had shelved any ideas of riding a fast bike time. So in training, I'd ridden that bike course more than 10 minutes faster in the dry. Mm-hmm. And with about 10 watts higher power. And then so I'd trained myself to ride a much higher power, but with the wet, my main aim was just to stay upright, because I just thought, look, I just don't want another fractured collarbone, and I want to make it to the finish line. So I was very tentative, probably more than usual. Yes, there were some potholes that had developed, and as I said, they're kind of potholes that had developed their own postcode because of all the recent rain, and they were huge. And then, I eventually I saw Tim coming back, and just knew that he was like, I was like, oh God, I'm not even in the same ballpark as you, buddy. But I was like,
that's not true, though. You weren't that far apart.
I mean, I think, he put a good chunk of time into me with that record-breaking swim, and that was absolutely, it was phenomenal, because even though the conditions weren't probably on the swim the worst they've had them. They still weren't superb.
Right.
Like it was definitely there was definitely some current.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I think it was actually good for Boris. Like Boris was a gentleman in the end, and he really I caught up to him. I said, "How are you going, buddy?" And I could see that he was having a bit of a rough time.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I went ahead, and I think I think he said it was, I'm not sure what his exact words were, but it was good to have some company out there, if that makes sense. Obviously legal, and so I think he was then used me a little bit to pace off to get back home for the last sort of, I think we were about 40 Ks back home.
Yeah, just someone to have contact with and keep your mind focused and things like that.
Yeah, 100%. And he then we hit a lot of traffic coming back in on Gympie Terrace, and to the point where like he couldn't help it. There was nowhere else to go, but like we were going over the speed bumps, and he was just kind of, we were getting sort of stopped. So we'd stop sandwiched together, and then he sort of said to me, "Don't worry, I'm not gonna take your thunder." I said, "That's fine." I said, "It's not going to worry me. I'm just glad that we're rolling in safely together." And then and then we sort of crossed the finish line one after the other, and and rolled in together, and just commiserated about how bad the conditions had been. But we were happy that we were both upright.
Yeah. And when we look at the day two, the day two conditions didn't get any better for you guys out there. There was more rain, more traffic. That one intersection, that hot spot where Tim Franklin was, just looked insane as far as all the traffic that was going through there. And then you have to know which time you're turning left, which time you're going straight. Your day two time was an 8:55:58. Which is good for third all time at the race. So those conditions were tough. That's great that you were able to get into that ranking within the race itself. What memories will you take away from day two?
The interesting parts were, one, how I don't know that that's unusual, but the boys, there were three of them that took it out pretty hard on the Boreen Point loop, and I just said, we'll let those go. And just I suppose with experience endurance racing, I knew that there was a certain effort level that I was going to be able to hold. And that's what I did all day. And again, it was like maybe about 10 watts lower than what I had wanted to hold. But with some of those descents, you just lost all your power because you had to be on the brakes, and there was no pedaling down any of the descents in the wet. My crew were fantastic. So Lisa Gatt, or Captain Gatt, she had... I had done her, just her supreme organisation in terms of having a whiteboard, putting up a whole lot of different little cheers for me on the whiteboard, and they made me laugh like the whole day. They were making me laugh. They were getting a little bit anxious about when I was going to stop for my refueling, because we decided that I'd practiced sort of catching a bottle, and then because I've got a tank in the middle of my BMC speed machine, you have to kind of flick the lid and then refill just over a litre. Right. And you sort of almost have to stop pedaling for that because it's in between your legs. And we sort of decided that it was going to be less dangerous and potentially faster just to do a one-stop strategy and have someone on the front bottle, have someone on the middle bottle, and just fill it. So I think I'd moved myself into third position, and I'd passed Craig, that was Greg Jenkins, and then Craig was behind me, and that's another story. But Craig was happy to have someone to pace off all day.
Okay.
Yeah. So Craig Craig enjoyed some great pacing for around about 200 Ks, but I'd passed Greg and Craig and Greg were then behind me. But at the intersection where Tim Franklin was, just before I hit that, just over on the side of the road, I pulled over. My team were fantastic. It was only about a 30-second stop, but they refilled both the front and middle bottles. So I was ready to do the rest of the race in terms of nutrition. So Greg and Craig rolled through ahead of me. So I was then back in fifth place. But going along the old Bruce Highway, I caught Greg again and went past him. And then Craig was up ahead, and it probably we were fairly evenly paced. So it probably took me about maybe 10 Ks to go around him again. And then I was on the front again for the rest of the race. Craig did warn me, like he said to me, as we were coming out of the Boreen Point loop, I slowed down because, and I was supposed to pull over there to give my crew the light and my vest, but I knew I had a pile of people behind me. I didn't want to stop because I didn't want to have to drop back and overtake them all again. Right. So I didn't pull over, but I slowed down to say to my crew, "Hey, I'm carrying on." And at that point, Craig rolled up to overtake me, and beside me, he said, are you planning on riding a 9-hour? And I said, I don't know. I'm planning on riding my own effort level, and whatever that ends up being in these conditions is what it is. And he goes, I think you're going to be consistent pretty much all day. And I went, yeah. And he was like, yeah. So I think he kind of warned me, I'm going to be pacing off you. Yeah. I'm going to be there. And he was. And then he apparently said to my crew at some point, because they were used to then seeing him just after seeing me. And he apparently said to them, I'm just like that bad uncle that won't go away. And Rooster, David Sheehan, my husband, said, yes, you are. And he did also say to me at one point when I would just pass Greg, he did roll up to me again and say, I'm just using you as some mental company as well, because I came off on one of the descents yesterday and I'm pretty nervous about it. So that's fine. At the end of the day, it wasn't impacting my race, even though there were some people getting antsy about it. But he was 10 meters back for most of it. And it was, I was just going to ride what I was going to ride. So it didn't really worry me. Yeah. So,
but he wasn't taking his turn out front.
No, there was no turns taken.
Wow.
No. And so there were, I don't know if it's kosher to share, but there were, some crews that were around us came up afterwards and told us some nicknames that they had for Craig. And so, I mean, some of them are probably kosher to share. And I think one of them, my crew named him Jaco because he was the caravan that was sitting behind me. There was someone else, another crew that named him Dangleberry because he was hanging off my ass. and then there was another crew that named him Bad Decisions because you can't get rid of them. Oh. So he got his fair share of banter out there, and but as I said, I mean, I knew he was using me to pace off, and it didn't really affect my race in any way, shape, or form. So yeah. So that was day 2. It was pretty interesting. And the only time we sort of caught a break was when we got back onto David Low Way, and there was a southeasterly, and you've got that nice smooth road surface. So just when you're tightest, you could, you could barrel up David Low Way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so were you aiming for a sub 9? Was that your goal going in?
Yeah. I mean, going in, I really wanted less than an 8:45. So that would have been ideal. And my actual time, not my elapsed time, my actual time was 8:47. But I don't know if you're aware, but there's 2 sets of roadworks traffic lights.
Yeah, the construction. Yeah, we heard about those.
Yeah, and I mean, Tim had some pretty average luck. Like I think he'll go into that a bit more. But yeah, like I said to him, yeah, genuinely at that stoplight, that's not really the way you want to catch someone.
No.
So, and it's not really the way you want to make up time on someone. So yeah, that was a bit of a bugger for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of day 2, I think he had about an hour and 12 minutes lead.
Yeah.
And you were second at that time. Going into the race, you already held the second fastest time for a run behind Kate Bevilacqua at that race. And you did say that you were going to try and set the record. You did get out there and you did set that new record. It was very exciting, as Steve was calling earlier on. It was very close between the two of you running on day 3. You stayed together, you and Tim, and Boris, I think it was the other runner, and Josh, maybe. You were all kind of close together. You had that escort out like you did on day 2. You had the escort out from the lead vehicles to take you through town. On day 3, you had an escort out as well in Simon Cochran, who was running along filming for us, which was awesome. And you guys kind of stayed together to the marathon mark. Did you feel like you were the one pushing the pace, and were you comfortable doing that? And did you get any sense that Tim maybe was going to fall off, that he wasn't in the right shape to get through this at the same pace that you were going? What was the day 3 like on course for you guys?
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty impressed that Tim made it with that pace as far as he did. So he had said that he'd only had, his longest run was 16 Ks. So I kind of,
that's right.
Yeah, I sort of said to my team, like, yeah, I mean, he's young, he's 28 and he's a male, and there's a certain amount of time even with that sort of training that you can fake it for, but I don't think you can fake it for an 84.4K run. So,
no.
So I was fairly confident I would have been blown away if he was able to run the whole way with me. But, I think a time that's much faster than my time is well within his capability, should he be able to get the actual training in for it. But yeah, on the day, I can say that I honestly ran my own race again. So the front there, it was me on the front. I'm actually gonna take that and put my hand up and say it definitely was me on the front there, because the boys, Boris said at some point, like he sort of sat on my shoulder. He said, "I'm going to stick to you like super glue for as long as I can." He goes, "This wasn't the plan. I wasn't meant to be running out this fast." And again, I thought in my head, "Oh, run your own race," because I knew that I was running mine and I had the whole event. So I was well in control, and my plan was to run sub 5 minute kilometres for the first marathon. Where it was really interesting was I'm not exactly sure where Josh dropped off, but maybe I think he might have been the smartest out of all 3 of them, because he realised that pace was a bit too much for his for what he, for the effort. And so he must have dropped off a little bit earlier and then just run his own race. But we got to the hills.
I think he stayed with you for the first half for sure. And then I think it was probably closer to the marathon where he started to fall back a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't with us on the hills. So obviously, like, you turn on and go up to Centenary Heights. And at that point, because Tim had actually stopped for a quick loo stop. So it was only myself and Boris as we entered the hills, and then Tim and his cousin who was pacing him. My plan had always been to not to stop, but to walk up the hills and actually get some nutrition on board. And so I walked up that, like, parts of the steep hills there, Boris ran past, Tim and his pacer ran past. And again, I just said to my pacer, Guy Walters, I said to him, look, just let them go. Like, I'm just need to do what I'm going to do. I need to run my own race. And so I did have to keep saying out loud, because when you're a racer, it's really quite difficult to let someone go.
Competitive juices going, yeah.
Yep. So I said a number of times out loud, and I'm sure Crackers, Craig Churchward and Guy would both attest to this. I just kept saying in that first one, just let them go, let them go. And so yeah, I let Tim go at that point over the hills, and then we got back out onto David Low Way, and then sure enough, I saw him and his pacer at that stage, Zolt Dallas, up the road, and that gap slowly started decreasing until we kind of ran around again. And then, we had some pretty good banter, because Craig Churchward, or Crackers, is around 6'4". He's a unit, and Zolt happens to be a unit, and he's around that same height as well. So it was the first time that they'd actually had someone that could provide them with a windbreak, because we had a fairly solid headwind heading along, down along David Low Way. So we did kind of, at that point, like Tim and I sort of alternated the lead, so we were taking turns. But I think for probably the last 6K down to the turnaround, I would have been on the front, and I knew Tim was hurting at that point. Right. You could just tell, and even as we were starting to catch them, I could just see his gait wasn't looking that great. So, I knew, I mean, it was never going to be easy, and I think it was a gutsy performance for him to actually get out there and run 84K based on the amount of training he'd had. So, and then at the turnaround, he had said, and I'd heard him saying that he was going to change his singlet and his shoes and socks, and so we went around, and that was the last time I saw him on that run.
Right. Yeah. And you're saying you were psychologically prepared to run your own race. I'm guessing that it went to plan for you, this run. You came in with the plan to get the record, and you kept your steady pace the entire time. You mentioned taking in the nutrition on the uphills, and I should point out you're a dietitian, you're an experienced athlete, so you know the nutrition side of this race as well. You flawlessly executed your plan. Is that what we're saying for day 3?
Pretty much. Like I discussed with another coach and friend who was gonna pace me as well. So Michelle Barnes from Team Barnes, and she'd coached another athlete back in 2018. And I said to her, based on what I've been doing, what do you reckon? Like, do you think that I can hold like close to a 5-minute pace? And she was like, definitely for the first half. And I said, the last time I had a run walk strategy the whole time, and apart from the hills, I'm not really planning on walking on the way out. Do you think that's foolhardy? And she was like, no, I reckon you're gonna drop some time in the second one. So if you can, you can fairly comfortably hold 4:50 to 5-minute pace for that first marathon. So I reckon you go do that, and then, hang on in the back end and change it to a run walk strategy if you need. And so, that's what I did. And I nailed my nutrition. I'm going to take it and just say I nailed it. Yeah. The team nailed it. They kept refilling the flasks. We'd worked out that having a 60 grams of carbohydrate infinite flask was going to be the way to go. I aimed to get through 60 grams an hour, and I ended up getting through about 75 grams an hour, we calculated, because early in that run, I realised that for the effort level, and probably from the preceding days, to maintain it, I was just going to need a little bit more than the 60 grams. So they gave me like flasks faster, and I also sort of supplemented with some Red Bull, because that's my that's my caffeine and nutrition of choice, just to sort of add into the Infinite. I think if they made a Red Bull flavored Infinite, I'd be on it.
Are you listening,
so
Infinite? There you go.
yeah, I'll have to talk to Rach and Jace about that. But yeah, no, I pretty well nailed the nutrition. The only time I was struggling, and that was not with the nutrition, that was I think just with having run the slightly faster pace. Probably started to struggle as we were coming under the overpass onto Tingira in the 10K where you need to have the last 10K where you need to have the pacer.
Right.
I had some I've had some ongoing issues with calf cramps, which I can really only put down to now being an older female, because nothing else really seems to make sense, but hormones can play havoc.
Right.
And my toes kept bending backwards on my left foot, and I was getting some cramps. And so I was having to be really careful with the way I was like stepping and just sort of slowing the pace down a little bit in that last 10Ks, because I really didn't want to completely lock out and not make it through. And I think that's probably the only time I ever got short with any one of my paces. I mean, Craig Churchward and Guy Walters can corroborate that. But I did say to Crackers that as we were probably only 4Ks out, and I said to him, I just need a little bit of quiet now. I think he was asking me questions about our going to see the Formula One in Malaysia, and I was saying, no, it's not Malaysia, it's Singapore. But I just couldn't really couldn't concentrate, and I just said, no, we just need a bit of quiet. So then he said, all right, no more questions, and he put the music on. And the best part of that day almost was Good Vibrations came on. And so we ran the last 4Ks with some Good Vibrations pumping out. So yeah, it was that was pretty special. And yeah, both my paces were exceptional. And I have to also add in that there was a cameo from Sarah Goodyear, who'd raced for Tony Goodyear, paced with Tony Goodyear, her husband, who raced in 2024 when I was supposed to race. They're both good friends of ours. And at one point, Craig Churchwood ended up getting a cramp and his hamstring. And so she swapped out to give him a little bit of a break. She had to borrow a spare sports bra that I had in the car. She'd signed a waiver already, and she had to borrow her husband Tony's T-shirt, whack it on, and pop out for about 5 or 6Ks just to give Craig a break before I had the mandatory pacer for the last 10.
Yeah, well, and that's what the Ultra Tribe does, right? Is they see somebody and they're willing to jump in and whatever it takes. She probably would have borrowed shoes or running Crocs or done whatever she needed to do.
That's right. I think she was lucky she had her running shoes on, but yeah, she had no sports bra, no shirt. So she went scraping around for those.
Well, you raced over in New Zealand last year for the 70.3. I'm wondering if there's any races over there in the future that might draw you to go back to New Zealand.
Good question, Larry. I did hear a little rumor about doing a race over there. So I actually won't be on the start line as an athlete there, but I will be as a crew member. So there is a good friend of mine, and he is 99% putting his hat in the ring for that one. So okay. He's very competitive, and he is very good, very strong on the bike. We just need to get him back in the pool. Doesn't like the swim. Okay. He's a very good cyclist and a very good runner. So I'll take great pride in crewing for him over there. But yeah, who knows? Who knows in the future?
Mm-hmm. And what does the immediate future hold for you then, as far as your Ironman racing or other racing that you might be taking part in for the rest of this year?
Rest of this year. So, Larry, you've caught me at the end of a very big 13 years of racing. I had said to everyone, they have heard this multiple times before, but I'm fairly serious this time. I had said this was my last hurrah for a while. I certainly will be involved in triathlon, coaching the Hervey Bay Tri Club and putting a bit more time into that. And I will be there for sure, supporting at races, supporting or crewing, and putting some time into that. There are some short races that I, depending on how I pull up from this, that I like to do for a bit of fun. So I might be looking at doing Camp Duathlon, which is sort of the Olympic distance duathlon. I do have a race entry for Gold Coast Marathon. I was just going to wait to see how the body pulled up, and there would be I would be going for a PR in the marathon. It's been a lot of years since I've run a standalone marathon, so probably around about 12 years actually. So it would be good if my body pulls up okay to go there. But I think that's one of the things with a latter's 40 female body, you just don't really know. So it's hard to actually put concrete plans in place. But those are some of the things that are on my agenda.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Now, if you go out there and you run a great marathon, does that mean now suddenly you're going to have to start thinking about, well, there's this Sydney marathon that's part of the World Series now. Is that going to just start a whole new thing for you?
Who knows? Who knows? I was supposed to be going up to Cairns Ironman. I'd sort of said that I would go and support and cheer for a few friends up there. But then I realised I had a clash in my schedule. But I sort of said, this could be the undoing of this is my last hurrah to racing, because I'd get up there and watch everyone at Cairns and get excited again and be like, no, I'm not selling my TT bike. I'm racing again. But we will see. We will see.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me today and sharing your tale of how the whole race unfolded for you. It's very exciting to see you up there at the front of that race and almost holding on to that lead that you put out there in the run and pulling off the
almost proving you right, Larry.
Almost proving me right. I hate being wrong.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Almost as much as Tim Franklin does, but that's okay. That's a different story. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Larry, and thanks very much for your coverage of the race.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you. People write to me at 515ultraman@gmail.com or reach out through Facebook to ask how they can support the show since it's offered for free. Well, the next time a friend or family member is looking for a podcast to listen to, tell them that you enjoy 515 the Ultra Podcast. Or share my Facebook and Instagram posts on your timeline to reach your friends. It is really that simple. Recommendations are one of the most important ways that podcasts grow. Thank you again for listening and for doing your part to share the show. My next guest is a former competitive swimmer who went into the Australia event this year with a plan to set a new swim record. And he did just that in a time of 2:14:49. He started triathlon just 2 years ago, and now this 28-year-old from Tasmania is the Australia champion in 2025. Welcome to the 515 podcast, Tim Belstead.
G'day, Larry. Thanks for having me, mate. It's pretty cool to be on my first podcast, so we'll see how this goes.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, I always try and make them pretty easy for everybody to come on, and I'm not going to hit you with anything that you're not prepared to answer. I don't think there's no gotcha questions coming up. So just enjoy it, and we'll want to hear some stories about how this race went for you.
Sounds good. Good.
I would like to start off by just playing your finish video as people from the podcast will know, we did live stream the entire event this year, and we have your finish being called by none other than Tim Franklin. So I'm gonna play that for you, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Sounds good.
It's about
Belstead, who is going to be our 2025 Ultraman Australia champion. Like I said before, he swam 2 hours, 14 minutes on day one. That's 10 kilometres. He then rode 4 hours, 26. He had a day one time, putting him in first place at 6:41. He then went out yesterday and rode 8:51 to be the fastest on day two. He was leading overall after 2 days in a time of 15 hours and 33 minutes and 15 seconds. He then put together the run today. He's going to come out the finish line. He has battled through this last 42.2 Ks. I know he's going to love this. Let's make some proper noise, ladies and gentlemen. Our first time finisher, athlete 37 from Tasmania in Australia, your 2025 Ultraman Australia champion, Tim Belstead. Congratulations, Timmy. Awesome work. Surrounded by his coach, his mates, and his mum and dad have been there for the whole ride. Amazing journey. He got the job done. Congratulations, Tim.
So I don't know if you had a chance to see that video before of the finish. I'm just wondering what it was like for you watching that back again to see that finish.
Yeah, that finish was pretty special. I've got the opportunity to watch it from a few different angles, but not the actual broadcast angle. So, yeah, you probably saw at the end there. I turned around to point to the Alex Gadomski Fellowship logo, which is something I wanted to do. I actually wanted to write for Alex on my forearms, but the pen that I took with me, Jordan Gadomski, my cousin who was running in with me, we went to write on my arms, and I was so sweaty that it just wasn't sticking. So I turned around to point to the logo, and yeah, nearly got cleaned up by Mum there. So that was a close call. Also noticed giving my brother James Belstead a bit of a cuddle at the end there. I reached for my watch to obviously stop the run, because we all know that if it's not on Strava, then it doesn't really count. Hey.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't count. You want to get that watch stopped so that you don't add any extra time onto that double marathon, obviously. And then at the finish line, you also had Jason Clark as the person who gave you your finisher's medal. What did that mean to you?
Yeah, that was super special. So yeah, Jason and I go back a few years before my triathlon days. He's probably the main reason he's definitely the main reason I found out about this event. And also, yeah, probably one of the main reasons I got into triathlon. Yeah, he's been there for me over the years, particularly when I've faced a few dark times. So for him to be handing me the finisher medal at the end there was super special. And I think it's a memory we'll both probably cherish forever.
Yeah. It's always special to be surrounded by those people that love you at the finish line. Your crew was made up of cousins and your family was there, obviously, and your brother. And you mentioned a little bit earlier about the Alex Gadomski Fellowship. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and why you were using that as an inspiration for you?
Yeah, so my cousin Alex, he passed away of bone marrow failure syndrome at the age of 21. And so there's a fellowship named after him down here in Tasmania as part of Maddie Rewalt's vision, which is the overseeing foundation. And what the Alex Gadomski Fellowship does is it actually funds research for bone marrow failure syndrome. It funds researchers to actually look into this kind of stuff and find a cure right here in Hobart. Yeah, so that's pretty special.
Yeah, it certainly is. And then when you're out there and you're coming into the finish and you're there with the other cousins, is Alex coming up to your forethoughts?
Yeah, to be honest, I think he was probably with me the entire time out there, and I really drew some strength and energy from him when I was facing some pretty difficult times out there. So yeah, he was definitely watching over us.
Well, you were certainly out there leading the way for most of the race. Tim called out some of your numbers. We'll just quickly go over them again in case people weren't able to pick those out in Tim's call at the finish line, and that is that you had a 2:14:49 swim, which beat the previous record of 2:25:43. 10-minute smashing of that. A 4:26:58 bike on day one for a total time of 6:41:47. Now, you were actually saying that you were going to go for that record, and I'm just going to play a little clip for you now about that.
Haven't really thought about goal times, to be honest. I'm putting it out there. I'm going for the swim course record. So that's a 2:25. I'm really gunning for that, and I'd like to think that I'll be hopefully under 8 hours every single day.
Well, you got that record, and you got under 8 hours on day one. What was day one like for you?
I kind of went into this race thinking that day one was going to be fun, day two was going to be really mental, and day three was going to be physical. And that's kind of how it played out. Due to injury, I've spent a lot of time in the pool over the last 6 months, and I've kind of used that swim course record as a bit of a goal to kind of keep my head in the game and keep working towards this event. So to be able to get that was super, super cool.
Mm-hmm. And you are a former competitive swimmer. So to what level were you getting in swimming?
So I've broken a couple Tasmanian junior records, and I made a couple national finals at Australian Championships when I was a junior. I kind of gave the sport away a little bit when I got to 18. I actually went back to playing soccer, which I played as a real little kid. But I did my ACL after a couple of years, so I ended up finding my love for being back in the pool again, which is paying dividends for triathlon.
Yeah, they say that you can't win a triathlon in the water, but you can definitely lose one. It gave you a pretty big head start out there on day one. What were the conditions like for you as you were riding around on the day one course?
I spent a lot of my time on the bike indoors, Zwifting around. But I'm not unaccustomed to some bad weather being located in Hobart, but that was definitely probably the worst conditions I've ever ridden in. It was super challenging, and also not fully knowing the course made it difficult. It was hard to know whether I was able to, send it down some of these hills. And I spent probably the most time on the brakes that I have in any race that I've ever done.
Oh, yeah. And you did have a pretty busy season last season with races. You've only been doing triathlon for a couple of years, but you did Ironman Cairns, the MultiSport World Championships, and the 70.3 World Championships all in 2024. Do you feel like those races were enough to prepare you to jump up to the 5:15 distance?
To be honest, I'm not sure if anything can really prepare you for your first 5:15 distance. I've never ridden a bike after swimming 10K, and I've never ridden more than 180 kilometers in one go before. I've learned a lot in the last couple of years, and I've raced a lot in hope that I'd be able to gain as much experience as possible. And generally something will go wrong in a race, and you've just got to learn how to deal with it. And I think that, racing so much last year, I was prepared to overcome whatever I needed to be able to finish the event.
And you took on a coach last year who was your team captain at this event and out on the course with you. So can you tell me about that, who that was, and how that might have helped you to prepare for this and the other races last year?
Yeah, definitely. So my coach is Jolt Dallos. He's the head coach at ZD Endurance. And yeah, I've been with him for, ever since I did my first half Ironman. I was like, oh, I've got to find someone to tell me what to do because I really don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, and I've been with him ever since, and we've been on a real journey together. My first half Ironman, I did it in 5 hours 38, and I was like, nah, I'm hitting up Jolt, and we're going to go to work. And 16 weeks later, I was able to take over an hour off my time at the
Amazing.
half Ironman, and so yeah, and from there we've just been progressing. Yeah, as you said, I was able to make the Australian team to for the MultiSport Championships, which were in Townsville last August. And then, yeah, I also raced at the 70.3 World Champs as well. So progressing nicely.
Mm-hmm. And is there an opportunity for you to maybe go back to New Zealand in the future? Is there any race that might draw you to go back there again?
Yeah, well, New Zealand is actually quite close to my home. I can get a direct flight over to New Zealand. So the announcement of a potential New Zealand in 2026 could be a little lure to get me on a flight over there late. Yeah, but we'll see. This race is still pretty fresh.
Yeah, they say sometimes that it's a little bit like giving birth to a child that after a while you forget about that pain and then you're ready to do the next one.
Yeah, well, I won't be birthing any children, but yeah, we'll see what comes out of this one.
On day two, you got an 8:51:28. And again, the conditions were not that improved over day one. It was a very miserable day out there on the course. How did day two come about for you? How did you find it? And I know you were trying to get under 8 hours each day, but were you happy with your 8:51 given the conditions?
Yeah, at the end of the day, that my 8 hours under each day was kind of a goal for some better conditions for sure. I went into day two and I didn't have a very good bike light. So once the police escort left us, I kind of had to sit in with a few athletes so I could actually see where I was going for the
Oh,
first half
wow.
hour. Um, after that time, yeah, I set off up the road to try and get to the lead, and I got the lead probably about 50 kilometers in. And just as we were leaving the like the no support zone, I managed to get a flat, lost the lead again, and so I had two wheel changes, and also I lost the gears on my base bar for my rear derailleur
Oh, my goodness.
within the first 70 kilometers of racing. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be a long day. So I ended up just, yeah, knuckling down, doing what I could, work my way back to the front. And unfortunately, they made us aware in the briefing that there'd be some roadworks out on course.
Right.
And the light for the roadworks was going to be about 3.5 minutes. And so sure enough, I see the roadworks and I see the light and I see it go red, and I'm like, right, I'm here for the full 3.5 minutes. And I was like, right, I'll get some nutrition in, have a bit of a stretch of the back. And the car at the front of the line, I'm not sure what they did, but there was an intersection coming off the side of where the roadworks were, and they decided they would drive out to see if there were any cars coming down to see if they could actually move forward. And they've set off the intersection light. So I ended up catching a double red light, and I was stationary there for over 7 minutes, I believe, and the rest of the guys caught me. And so I felt a bit defeated then. I took off last out of the four of us, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna sit for a while." And we all copped the next red light, and I was like, "You know what? Nah, I'm gonna absolutely send." So from there, I took off. I was in unknown territory there, or over 180 kilometers. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen to my body, to my mind. So we'll just push it and we'll see what happens. I think there are about 15 red lights out on course, and I copped 13 of them, I believe. I think I only got 2 greens. Followed by the fact that I was following my map on my bike computer, and we were back into Noosa. We were probably about 2 kilometres from the finish, and I saw an arrow on the screen to turn, but I didn't see an arrow on the roundabout. And so I've done a loop of the roundabout just to check to make sure I was going the right way, because my bike computer was telling me to turn. And so I went out around this turn, and I realised that was the turn from the morning, and the map was still showing from the 5:30 start that morning. So I ended up adding on an extra couple of minutes to my ride, less than 2 kilometres from the finish line. So I was pretty glad to actually make it to the finish line in first place after a pretty tough day, to be honest.
Yeah. And I talked to Kirsty as well, and she said that catching up to you at the light was not the way she wanted to catch up to you.
All the guys were pretty they were like, oh, this is so unfair that we've caught you or whatever, but that's part of the game. We're aware that we have to follow road rules. There's going to be traffic. You're going to have to ride in the rough shoulder sometimes, and
right.
I don't know, I think that's what makes this event different. It's just all part of it. So
yeah. And that is why the crew is also so important to your race, is to maybe get a look at that course for you to get up ahead, and if they see something, they can come back and warn you, or just to help you make those turns and not miss a turn. Within your crew, we said that you've had your coach there. You also had your brother. We when we were doing the preview episode, we were going with some of the notes from what you presented, and we noticed that you were kind of making fun of your brother a little bit. So we thought you were going to be a good person out there to bring some good humor to the course. You making fun of his national masters record. Maybe tell us, why did you add that in, and what is his record?
So my brother James, he has a national masters 1,500 meters breaststroke record. And so quite often, we'll be having a family dinner, we'll be talking about, some of my achievements or whatever. And quite often he'll bring up, but you don't have a national record. And so, he's kind of got that one over me. But I like to poke a bit of fun at it, because I don't think you'll be seeing me doing a 1,500 meters breaststroke anytime soon.
No, who does?
He likes to pick some unusual events, and I guess so do I, doing something like this.
Exactly. Yeah. And now you can take the championship on that one and hold that one over him.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So on day 3, we heard that you were struggling in your training due to a stress fracture, and we were wondering just how you were going to go on the run. In day 3, you did run with Kirsty up to the marathon mark, crossing in 3:28 and a few seconds. But at that point, you decided to kind of let her go on that. I guess you felt like maybe you had enough in the bank to still hold on to the championship, or were you concerned? Were you worried about that, the fact that you might allow that hour and 12 minutes or whatever it was lead that you had coming into day 3? Were you concerned that it might slip away?
Yeah. So I suppose we rewind to December. I raced at the 70.3 Ironman World Champs with a stress fracture in my femur. Unfortunately, we got a scan 2 days after the event. We kind of knew what it was going to be. However, that was actually diagnosed as just a stress reaction. And so I continued on with some training that I probably shouldn't have done. I got a rescan 6 weeks later, and it turns out I had a 1 centimeter crack in my femoral neck. So run training this year has almost been non-existent. I started running about 6 weeks ago, and that started off with, I believe it was 20 minutes, where I was running for 3 minutes, or jogging for 3 minutes, and walking for 2 minutes. And so that's kind of the level that we started at. My longest run in the lead up to the event was 16 kilometers, which I'd done a week before, and I pulled up pretty sore from that.
Wow.
I went to the doctor 2 days after that run, so a few days before the event, and he was like, "Yeah, so you're pulling out of the event, right?" And I was like, yeah, yeah. So I went into day 3 really not knowing. I didn't have a plan. I was like, I just need to see what I can do. I took off, and yeah, I was like, oh, I'm just going to run until I can't. Really started struggling, honestly, from just over 30 kilometers in. And at that point, I was in the lead. After a few hills, Kirsty decided to walk up the hills, and my leg feels more comfortable going up hills than on the flat and down hills. So I decided I would push the hills.
Right.
And so I was actually in the lead for a little bit there. And she bridged the gap and took the lead. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to hang on for as long as I can. I was like, I'll just follow, try and get in as much nutrition as I can, and just see what happens. And I was really in the hurt locker quite early on. I got towards the halfway mark, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to treat myself. I had a spare pair of shoes. I was like, I'm going to put some new shoes on, new socks, because we had to run through a lot of puddles.
Right.
I'm going to put a singlet on. It's starting to get a bit warmer. And so I pretty much did a full kit change at the halfway mark. And to be honest, that was probably a massive error. Once I stopped, I found it really, really hard to get going again. Yeah, I've only run a marathon off the back end of an Ironman. So to get to that turn mark and know that I had to run all the way back, I was like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm in for. I thought that a new pair of shoes and a new kit would kind of freshen me up a little bit and switch me back on. But by that stage, yeah, Kirsty had gone up the road, and Boris, who was in third place at the time, he had passed me as well, and I kind of lost those guys, and battled my way home.
Yeah, and on the way home, were you thinking about your lead, or were you just trying to get to the finish line and not concerned about winning the race at that point, or was the competitiveness there? Were you getting reports back about how much they were opening up on you? What was going on in the crew vehicle for you guys?
Yeah, so I think we first probably got a split after about, so I think it was 60 kilometers roughly. And yeah, I was like, oh, Kirsty's got a fair lead on me now. And I was constantly getting splits, to be honest, what the gap was. And at one stage, yeah, close to the end, it was like had gone out to like 40 minutes. And by that stage, I was doing a lot of walking. I was in a lot of pain. I was limping. My knee had swollen up massively. The way I was limping, my other foot, like my good side, was bruising, and yeah, I was really battling out there. But we got some splits, and we kind of worked out what I needed to do, and really we got to probably the game winning moment, I suppose you'd call it. Jordan Gadomski, my cousin, he was with me for that last 10K, and we got to to be honest, I can't really remember. My brain was absolutely fried, but I think it was about 81 kilometers. And he was like, look, mate, if you run or jog the next 1 kilometer, we'll be able to walk most of the way back, and you'll be able to wrap this up with a couple of minutes to spare. And so I'd been walking for a fair bit at that time. And yeah, I just pushed through. I was like, I can do 1 more kilometer. 1 more kilometer. And then we got to 1 kilometer. He's like, oh, we might as well round it up to the 0.3. So now you've only got 3 kilometers to go. And so I ended up running 1,300 meters, and it was probably the hardest 1,300 meters of my life. And but yeah, from there we knew I was gonna take the win, and I guess I was able to kind of soak it up and enjoy running along the beach with hobbling along the beach with my family, coach, friends. So yeah, it was nice to be able to soak up that special moment coming up the stand, as much as I really just wanted to stop.
Yeah, and so like I said, you were a 3:28 going out, and you were nearly 5 hours coming back. I can only imagine how that felt on the way back when the time is growing in that amount. And
yeah, not the most impressive split, that's for sure.
So maybe it's a little bit of credit to Kirsty for running you out as quick as she did to get you to that finish line in time.
She's a phenomenal competitor, and it was, to be honest, the first 21K. There were a little group of us, and we we're all chatting and laughing, and that was super enjoyable. We had our paces with us, it was really nice just to run as a group. I said to them, I said, "Hey guys, thanks. I've just done my longest run of the year," and we'd only been running, for not even an hour and a half at that stage. So we had a bit of a chuckle at that, and then from then, from the turnaround, it was kind of every man and woman for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And you also had Simon Cochran run out with you for that first 10K as well. What was it like having Simon alongside you?
Yeah, that was cool. That bloke was hardly even breathing while we were all puffing along. So we had a good chat, and he's an absolute awesome bloke, and it was cool to get some insights. He was saying something about how he just come back from a 200 miler or something ridiculous. So he was kind of flexing on his achievements and his ability while we're out there just trying to get done a double marathon. So good on you, Simon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we were talking to Simon while he was running with you because he was filming for us. That was great. And we were talking about that 200-mile race, and we couldn't get him to say that he had won it. Like we had me and Steve King were talking to him. We knew he won it, and we're like, oh, or did quite well at that race, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, well, I don't think he mentioned that he won. So maybe I'm painting a picture of Simon that he's a bit more arrogant than he actually is. So he's an absolute legend, and it was awesome to have him there and pick his brain a little bit, particularly post race, and just see what makes him tick a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all the athletes really enjoyed meeting Simon at the race, and they were talking to him before the race, between days and stuff like that, like you said, and just trying to get those extra insights into, what it takes to finish one of these events, let alone finish it in a world record time like he did.
Yeah, absolute, like a phenomenal athlete. It's for him to go 4 hours quicker than what I did. Like it's hard to put those numbers together and work out where it all comes from. So super impressive.
Yeah. Well, you didn't quite get under your 8 hours again on day 3, but you did get the championship, as we said. You were there for 23:55:06. So if you take the 3-day average, you got under your 8 hours each day. So good on you on that.
Yeah, that's it. I was probably a bit naive in thinking I'd be able to get under 8 hours, maybe with some better conditions. That would have been possible. But overall, to be under 24 hours, that was kind of, I guess I didn't really know what to aim for going in, but I thought that 24 hours was a realistic number that I could try and achieve. So, to be able to do that's pretty cool. But at the end of the day, just finishing the event was super special.
Yeah. And for your team captain and coach Zolt, he's a pretty quick guy too. He does a sub 9 hour Ironman. Is he going to be lining up to do an Ultraman or UM race?
I don't think so. He was more than happy to support, and I think that's the extent that that goes for him.
Oh yeah. So what races are you looking at doing now? What do you have on the future list?
So I'm going to have a bit of a break now. I need to get this femur sorted. I've got a scan and a doctor's appointment coming up over the next couple of weeks. So realistically, the rest of the year will kind of be based on the results from that. I'm hoping to make the Australian team to race at the Wollongong Olympic Distance World Championships. However, unfortunately, I didn't do any selection events for that event. So I'll be based on some previous results to see if I get picked up in that team. From there, I'm going to race at Melbourne 70.3, and then I want to have another crack at a full Ironman. So I'll be heading to Busselton in December, if all goes to plan.
Oh yeah, that's a beautiful course out there.
Yeah, I've not done Busselton, so we'll be heading out west and see what that's all about.
And there were a couple of WA athletes out at the Australia this year. Were you able to connect up with them?
To be honest, I don't know where most people came from, but I was able to talk to so many people, and And I think the awards day, day 4, I didn't realize how long that was going to go. And for everyone to come up and congratulate me and just, to share everyone's stories out there. You don't really hear about everyone else's adversity that they have to go through on the race course. So it's really nice to hear those stories, and I've definitely made a few more mates since doing the event.
Yeah, and that's when I talk to people about the podcast, this is one of the reasons why I continue to do it. Is it's meeting people like you and getting the opportunity to hear the stories and share those stories with everyone else, and that whole idea of the Ohana and the Ultra Tribe just growing as each one of these events takes place is the way to meet all these people and to then have those connections moving forward. Because now anytime you're out in the world, if you need something and you're somewhere and you're like, hey, I'm here and can I borrow a bike or can I borrow something? And it's like someone is going to be there for you that is part of this tribe. And that's the amazing part about being a member of it, I think.
Yeah, most certainly. I was kind of told about how you kind of join this family as you go through one of these events, and I didn't really understand it until I completed it. But yeah, I definitely get it now, and it's super cool to be a part of, and yeah, it's really special.
Yeah. Well, during the live streaming, I was putting up different graphics for the various disciplines and who the top 5 people were historically in the race. So I did do an update on one, so I want to show you that one. There's the new graphic of the swim times with the photo of Tim Belstead there.
Hopefully that one stays around for a little while now.
Yeah, I think it probably might. You've got a really good time there, and you did it in not ideal flat conditions in the water. So maybe you have to come back yourself in order to try and beat that one.
Yeah, it was far tougher out in the ocean than I thought it was going to be. That's for sure. So maybe it could be a little quicker. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll wait till it's broken before I think about that too much.
Okay. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and telling us about how your race went. It's an elite group of people that you have joined, with only being the 10th anniversary of the race, that can say that they are champions in Australia. So congratulations on that once again, and good luck with healing up and getting the rest of those races in for this year.
Thanks, mate, and thanks to you for all your work that you've done. Yeah, it was super special to be able to have friends and family and co-workers and everyone checking in from at home. So thank you to you as well.
Oh yeah, no problem. That's what I want to tell those stories. So thank you for providing the actual racing so that they can watch that. That's the hard part, my friend. That's the hard part.
That's the easy part, I think, but we can agree to disagree there.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, mate.
If you've never checked out the show notes before, that's where I put the names of every person and every event mentioned, along with other important links. In today's notes, you will find a link to the Alex Gadomski Foundation and the Australia 2026 applications. If you enjoyed watching the live stream, or you're just a fan of the podcast, you can also find a link to my support page at Buy Me a Coffee. I enjoy making this content for you, but working as a one-man unsponsored show, I do appreciate it when you show your appreciation to me. And now, let's talk to Jeff Morris. And my next guest on the podcast is the race director for Australia, coming in to tell us how things went from the race director and the dream team side of the race. And we've heard from the athletes. Now we'll hear from the man himself, Mr. Jeff Morris. Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
Going good. G'day to yourself and to everyone listening in.
Yeah. So you put on the 10th Australia this year. It was the anniversary. It was celebrated both there and on the live stream that we presented together. How did you feel that the 10th anniversary race went off from the perspective of the people running it, you and the dream team?
Look, it was just magic to be here 10 years down the track. You know, for me, that was 10 years after I crewed for someone. For Tony, I know he absolutely enjoyed it and just kind of was in a bit of a dreamland all weekend going, this thing I started has now lasted 10 years. I don't think he ever dreamed that it would. So from that, it was pretty surreal. The fact we did celebrate it, we had some amazing things with Zatisha's artwork that we've integrated into the race to celebrate us being here on Gubby Gubby country and having been here for 10 years. You know, having that 10-year race logo pop up here and there, having so many people back, you know, including a few of the OGs that raced back then in 2015, and having a crew of new athletes through that. Some of them had watched it since 2015, but some of them it was very new to them, but embraced it. The crews, it all came together, and to capture that live and some of the things that got caught on live and broadcast the world were just magic. And I know myself, I've already rewatched the award ceremony twice, even though I was there live, and talked to a lot of people that have just said, wow, I didn't quite realise what this thing was. So it's been awesome to make it to 10 years. It was awesome to have you and the 515 podcast on board to show it to the world for this 10th year.
Yeah, and there were some pretty dramatic stories being told there. John DeMandel tried to control all of the dramatic stories, I think. What were your thoughts about how that went, and have we heard anything update about him and his pilot, about how they're feeling these days?
Yeah, I spoke to John and Dan both just a couple of days ago before I left Noosa. Dan had gone home, he'd flown home. John and Kim were driving home. So John was still a little bit sore and sorry. He's got that broken collarbone. Dan's waiting for some swelling to go down to see whether he needs surgery on the fractures to his face. But both in very good spirits. Look, we did our best to look after them. The crews, that spirit that we know that lives within this event, you know, athletes and other crews stopping to look after them. We had Erica, our medic, there very quick, which, you know, partly good planning, partly good fortune, to be able to monitor him and do some of those obs before ambulances arrived. And realistically, you plan for all these things as a race director. You hope to never have to use them. We did use them this year, and couldn't have been happier with how that all went off, making the best of a bad situation. So, yeah, look, let's see where John and Dan land. There's whispers that Dan wants to come back and do the race solo in a couple of years. Yeah. Knowing the man John is, I think John's going to want to come back to finish one more time. I don't think that's how he wants his last to finish. But you know, he's got a wedding to plan now, so might have to wait a little while.
And that was the drama at the end of day 3. So we had some day 2 drama from John, and it was so nice watching those guys walk across the finish line at the end of day 2 as we were signing off, and everybody coming up to support them. And then on day 3, as we're signing off, he gets in there again and does the proposal on the beach. What was it like to be there for that?
Look, it was just magic. I've known John and talked to John for a long time. John obviously has some unique demands, requests. I don't know how to describe it as an athlete. You know, there's things we need to cater for him around having that extra crew and whatnot. So I do talk to John a lot, and you know, the thing he was most upset about was that proposal. This is 2 years in the making for him. This is training hard to get to that finish line, and his intent was always to get on one knee at the finish line proper with Kim and do it, finishing the race. You know, this is what life's about. Things don't go to plan, but that doesn't stop you needing to live your life and achieve the things you want to achieve. And was a huge goal, but asking him to marry him in a way that befits their beautiful relationship they had, John found a way to do it, and we were really happy to support that. So I think this was one of the more special moments of the weekend, that's for sure.
Yeah, and just before that, obviously we had the dramatic, 8 seconds after the cutoff for the run. And to be able to bring that out on the live stream, I think was an important thing as well, because then people see exactly what it takes, and the people that were running out to try and bring him down the beach to get to that finish. And yes, participant, but participant with a lot of heart, I think.
Yeah, 100%. That's, again, it's the spirit of this race, and Steve would acknowledge that as much as anyone. You know, in life, there's rules and regulations that we live our lives by. And Steve, I think, you know, ignore the 8 seconds. Steve achieved his goal. He came back. He went 2.5 hours faster on day 3 than he went 2 years ago, and he wanted to hit that finish line. Now, yeah, it's 8 seconds. Our record books will show he was a participant by our definition rather than a finisher. But I don't think that's lessened anything in Steve's mind, nor in our mind, of his achievements. And he spoke beautifully at the awards, almost without mention of that. Like, that was... he was here to be part of the family and the tribe, and do the 3 days plus of competition and push himself, and he did that. You know, 8 seconds does not diminish any of those things. But again, it shows the fairness is another, probably not the best word for it, but, you know, you have rules, and you follow them, and that's life. And, you know, we've got Tiff on crew that, you know, the year she raced 2017, 2019, can't remember now. You know, she went 12 hours, 93 seconds on day 2. She's a participant. She rocked up day 3 and did that run. She did the distances, you know, bit of a time whoopsie, but that's it. You've done it. You know, it's the spirit of this event. You know, one of my favourite things, and we gave Raj the Be Phenomenal, but Raj turned up from India, very little open water training, and, mate, got seasick, like projectile vomiting halfway through that swim, to the point, you know, Miko, one of our dream team, was paddling for him, you know, and I think he did about a kilometre and a half after he started being sick, and in the end he just couldn't continue. Now, went home, you know, Anthony Vodman's, our last year's champion, was his team captain, went home, they settled him, got some fluids into him, got him eating, and he rocked up day 2 and completed day 2 and day 3. Now, that's, again, what this thing's about.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's special. And I don't think in future years anyone will talk about 8 seconds for Steve. They'll talk about the spirit of him getting there and knocking it out the park for the second time, and his support and his beautiful speech on day 4.
Yeah. And so now it's been a few days since you've had a chance to reflect on this. Is there one thing that stands out more than others for you about this year's race?
Oh, look, I don't think there's one thing. The day 3 finish was special. It's hard as a race director. Kirsty's a very good friend of mine, has been for a very long time. She's my club coach up here in Hervey Bay. Timmy Belstead was brought into the race by Jason Clark. He'd seen Jason do it and had lived where Jason lived. So here was me and Jason, you know, 2 of the integral people to the race with skin in the game. And I don't know, for 2 days I didn't send a single message to Kirsty or Rooster, her husband, and their crew, to see what was happening. I really stayed back, but I couldn't resist. I did have to message Rooster on Monday. I said, mate, this is from me as an invested friend. You know, is she going to be able to hold this pace?
Yeah.
It's not for anyone's consumption other than mine. He's like, she's looking really good. So, you know, she finished that line. She nailed her goal. I knew what she wanted to do after the rain. She was never going to beat the course record, but she wanted that run record, and she got it. And I was so stoked for her. And the next hour of our lives, you know, on-course reports. Oh, Timmy's blown up. Timmy's walking. Timmy's this. He's got an hour and whatever it was, 15, 18 or something.
Yeah.
Where is he? You know, we've got a timing map, but it's miles away. We then know when they come to the stairs, how long are they going to take to get down the beach? And, you know, well, I know they went 36 hours, but, 24 hours of active racing, 3 days, all the lead up, and we're sitting at the finish line going, we don't know who won. The cameraman from Channel 7 TV News was so confused. He's like, can I interview the winner? I'm like, mate, I don't know who the winner is. He's like, but she just finished. I'm like, dude, math. But yeah. And then, Kirsty, I don't know if you caught on the live stream, Kirsty was on the massage table, and I said, do you want to see Tim finish? I went over to see her, and she said, yeah. And then she thought about it and went, I can't, I've got blisters all over my feet. And so I just carried her over to the finish line. It was, 20, 30 metres. It's just what you do. But, stood her there on a little square of carpet that was covering some electrical cords, and she got to watch Tim finish and congratulate him. And it was so genuine between those two. There's a couple of beautiful photos of them where they just gave their all. At the end of the day, it didn't matter who was one, who was two, and it doesn't matter in this race whether you won or 41. You've towed that start line, you've put the time in, you've sacrificed with your family and your crew, and you're there. So that moment at the finish line was magic. Having my good friend Kirsty really nail some of her goals and give us some really exciting moments. I guess that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I love giving Steve York a big hug. I'd been bawling my eyes out about 2 minutes early because I didn't think there was any chance he was getting any close, and then suddenly he got close, so the adrenaline hit me. But yeah, give him a big hug across the line, and his leg went. I wasn't hugging him in the end, I was just hanging on to him. And that's that. We had Ben, who crewed for us last year, that crewed because he didn't have strong connection to anyone in this space, and struggles in life a little bit to connect with people, but he came and worked for us last year because he wanted to see it from the inside. He wanted to meet some people, and then he came here to take on the race. Saturday was brutal and hurt him, and how you come back from missing cutoff to then rock up and run 84K is impressive. And then things didn't go to plan for him. And, he was a guy that knew, well, you had pack up to do. He'd been here last year. They're big days. The cutoffs are cutoffs for a reason, but they're also so we can continue on with what we have to do. And Ben said, I want to stay out here. I'll just pack up the course as I go. As I run past an arrow, we'll throw it in the ute. So our crew, Mika stayed out there with him, but in general, our crew came back into the finish line and could knock the finish line down. And, then I don't even know how long it was afterwards that he completed the course. And yeah, that was pretty amazing. Again, someone who's going to be classed as a participant, not a finisher, but one of the most emotional stories of those 3 days and 5 days, 6 months, year, 2 years it's been talking to Ben about it. So it's a magic thing that we're involved in.
Yeah, very, very magic. And as I've said before, that's why I'm doing this podcast too, is just to tell these stories and to make sure that people know that this is happening. Like this world exists, and these amazing people deserve to have their stories told. But before we let you go, we do have to talk about this thing that Tony came in and teased us right on day one. And then we got the announcement a little bit later that the UM is going to be putting a race in New Zealand. So the people have been hitting up all of the comments about where is it, when is it, what's going on. How much of the information do you have in place that you can share to the listener?
Look, that is the information. We are going to New Zealand. That's kind of my personal commitment. I hope I can pull that off. I was a lot of the way there, and I did say the location as Wanaka was the planned location, but I think I said 98%. That was probably a bit ambitious, maybe 90%. Look, a few things happen when these things get announced. Suddenly, little interesting tidbits come out of the woodwork. So 100% the plan is to be in New Zealand. Look, that will be either at the end of 26 or the start of 2027. So we still are looking, 18, 21 months, whatever that is, away. But that's the sort of time it takes to put these things into place. They are big. Certainly, Wanaka was the place that I've most invested in finding details. There's, like all these things, news is probably perfect in just about every way. There's probably nowhere in the world else that is perfect from all the things we need to look at from an athlete and a race director point of view. But we will be hitting New Zealand. Certainly the plan is sitting there for Wanaka. So we will wait and see how that comes off. We have got another location that's in the running now. And we'll give everyone information as soon as we can. I was hoping to open entries for both, or applications for both races this week, but we're going to have to just stick to just Australia at the moment. And when we can confirm some details for what we're going to do in New Zealand, we will let everyone know as soon as we can. We're not building tension. We just need to make sure it's right before we pull the trigger there.
Excellent. Yeah. And I know there's already at least a handful of people who have put their hand up and said they definitely want to be going to New Zealand to do a race. So I don't think the applications...
A lot of hands.
I don't think there's going to be any problem with taking in the applications. Reading through them might take quite a while. So I was super happy to be able to do that live stream with you in the race and the dream team. And I think we've definitely set the standard going forward. And hopefully some more race directors will contact me and want to do this as well, because I am definitely open to doing that. I look forward to working with you again on this. And thank you so much for your time today and all the hard work that you put into putting this race on for the athletes.
Yep, same to you. I know how hard you work behind the scenes, and we will always continue to improve, and that's same for the race as it is for the support we give to you. And that's going to be a big thing moving forward. I think that so many more people can see this and get exposed to it. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Jeff, and enjoy a little bit of rest before you start planning next year.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview, and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises. Now really, go subscribe now before you forget.